Welcome to today's episode, where we'll explore a fascinating but often misunderstood aspect of human interaction: how women may use subtle tactics to manipulate and control men. Throughout history, great philosophers and thinkers have sought to understand the complexities of relationships between men and women. The Stoics, known for their wisdom and mastery of self-control, spent their long, meaningful lives studying human nature, including the psychology of women. They believed that the key to a balanced and peaceful life was emotional resilience and self-awareness. Today, we're drawing on that ancient wisdom to uncover some of the hidden ways women might manipulate men, often without men even realizing it. It's important to note that not all women use these tactics, nor do they always have ill intentions. Sometimes, these behaviors come from a place of insecurity or emotional need rather than a desire for power. However, understanding these dynamics can help you become more self-aware and avoid being controlled in ways you're unaware of. Make sure to watch this video until the end, where we'll break down 7 key tactics that women might use to manipulate or control men. And as always, don't forget to like, subscribe, and comment with your thoughts or experiences. If you've been in a situation like this before, feel free to share your story with us. Chapter 1: Emotional Blackmail. Emotional blackmail is one of the most insidious and powerful tools of manipulation, often used subtly yet effectively. It involves using guilt, fear, or an emotional threat to pressure someone into doing something they may not want to do. For men, this can be a particularly difficult tactic to navigate because it taps into the sense of duty, responsibility, compassion, and sometimes a deep-seated fear of losing the relationship. The hallmark of emotional blackmail is that it doesn't involve a direct demand, but rather a subtle manipulation that leaves you feeling like you have no choice but to comply. A woman using emotional blackmail might say things like, "If you really loved me, you'd do this for me," or "I guess you don't care about us as much as I thought you did." These types of statements create a false dichotomy: either you do what she wants, or you are labeled as uncaring or selfish. They're designed to evoke guilt, making you question your own intentions and feel as though you're failing in some invisible but important way. What makes emotional blackmail particularly damaging is its ability to erode self-confidence. You may start to second-guess your own needs and boundaries, putting her desires above your own in an effort to avoid conflict or emotional backlash. This kind of manipulation is rooted in controlling behavior. By making you feel like the bad guy, she creates a dynamic where she holds the moral high ground, forcing you to justify your every action. From a Stoic perspective, emotional blackmail represents a failure to adhere to the principle that emotions should never control our actions. The Stoics believed that true wisdom comes from separating emotion from reason. Being emotionally blackmailed forces you into making decisions based on fear of confrontation, fear of being seen as the villain, or fear of losing the relationship. But fear is not a solid foundation for any decision, particularly in relationships where mutual respect and understanding should guide your actions. The Stoics would advocate taking a step back when faced with emotional blackmail and analyzing the situation logically. Ask yourself, is this person trying to manipulate my emotions to get their way? Am I being made to feel guilty for something I haven't done, or for setting reasonable boundaries? By evaluating the situation with a calm mind, you can prevent yourself from being swept up in an emotional storm. The key is to recognize that while you are responsible for your actions, you are not responsible for managing someone else's emotions. It's also important to understand that emotional blackmail often stems from insecurity or an unhealthy need for control. The person using this tactic may be afraid of vulnerability and resort to manipulation to maintain a sense of power in the relationship. While this behavior may not always be malicious, it is still damaging and must be addressed. To counter emotional blackmail effectively, the first step is setting firm boundaries. Boundaries are essential in any healthy relationship, and they allow you to maintain your emotional well-being. When emotional blackmail arises, it's crucial to recognize it for what it is and communicate that guilt tripping or manipulation is not an acceptable way to get you to comply. Clearly state that decisions in the relationship need to be based on mutual respect and understanding, not emotional pressure. Communication is another vital tool. Often, emotional blackmail stems from unresolved issues or unmet needs that are being expressed in unhealthy ways. It's worth attempting an open, honest conversation about what's driving her to use these tactics. Maybe she feels insecure, neglected, or uncertain about the relationship, and these underlying emotions manifest as manipulation. If you can engage in a dialogue where both of you feel heard and validated, it may be possible to break the cycle of emotional blackmail. At the same time, it's important to stand your ground. Giving into emotional blackmail only reinforces the behavior, making it more likely to be used again. When you allow guilt or fear to dictate your actions, you weaken your position in the relationship, making it harder to set boundaries in the future. A healthy relationship is built on mutual respect, not manipulation, and allowing yourself to be coerced into decisions that don't align with your values or comfort level will only lead to resentment over time. One of the most difficult parts of dealing with emotional blackmail is the fear of confrontation or escalation. You might worry that by refusing to give in, the relationship will suffer, or that you'll be painted as the bad guy. However, the Stoics remind us that while we can't control how others behave, we can control how we respond. By standing up for yourself in a calm and measured way, you demonstrate not only your self-respect, but also your respect for the relationship. You are sending a message that manipulation has no place in your interactions and that both partners need to work through issues in a healthy, constructive manner. In conclusion, emotional blackmail is a powerful tool of manipulation that can deeply affect your sense of autonomy and self-worth. By recognizing it, setting firm boundaries, and communicating openly, you can protect yourself from falling into its trap. Stoic wisdom teaches us that while we can't control how others try to manipulate us, we have full control over how we respond. Never allow fear, guilt, or emotional pressure to dictate your decisions, especially in matters as important as relationships. Chapter 2: Using Sex as a Tool for Manipulation. One of the most common ways women manipulate men is through the strategic use of sex. Sex is a powerful element in relationships, and many men find themselves deeply affected by the prospect of physical intimacy. For some women, this becomes a tool to manipulate, offering or withholding it to control behavior, gain favors, or steer the relationship in a particular direction. It's important to recognize this manipulation tactic because it can have a profound emotional and psychological impact, leaving men feeling confused, frustrated, or even powerless. The manipulation often works like this: if she feels like she's not getting her way or wants you to change your behavior, she may withhold sex as a form of punishment. Conversely, she might offer sex as a reward when you do something she likes. This creates a transactional dynamic in the relationship where intimacy is no longer an expression of mutual affection, but a tool for control. In such cases, physical intimacy becomes conditional, and your actions are directly tied to whether or not you will receive affection. For men, this can be deeply frustrating. Sex, in a healthy relationship, is an intimate, mutual expression of love and connection. When it's used as a bargaining chip, it diminishes the emotional bond between partners and replaces it with a power struggle. You may start to feel like you're constantly walking on eggshells, trying to figure out how to behave to keep her happy or get her to reward you with affection. From a Stoic perspective, this is a clear case of being controlled by external desires. The Stoics taught that we should not allow ourselves to be governed by impulses or desires, especially those that can cloud our judgment. When sex is used as a form of manipulation, it's important to detach from the immediate emotional response and evaluate the situation rationally. Are your decisions and actions being shaped by the desire for physical intimacy? Is the relationship's dynamic becoming less about partnership and more about control? Recognizing this manipulation for what it is requires a level of self-awareness and emotional control. Understand that no healthy relationship should be based on rewards or punishments, especially when it comes to something as personal and important as sex. If intimacy is being withheld as a means of control, it's a red flag that something deeper is wrong in the relationship. To counter this, open communication is key. Address the issue directly, expressing how the transactional approach to intimacy made you feel and how it's affecting the relationship. Be clear that using sex as a bargaining tool undermines the trust and connection between you. You deserve to be in a relationship where intimacy is shared out of mutual desire and respect, not as a form of manipulation. It's also important to set boundaries around intimacy. Make it clear that your emotions and actions won't be manipulated through the withholding or offering of sex. While this may create temporary tension, standing your ground ensures that the relationship remains built on genuine connection, not manipulation tactics. The Stoics remind us that we can't control how others behave, but we can always control how we respond, and in this case, refusing to be swayed by manipulative tactics is a sign of emotional strength. Chapter 3: Excessive compliments and flattery. Another subtle but highly effective manipulation tactic used by some women is excessive flattery or over-the-top compliments. While genuine compliments are a healthy part of any relationship, there are moments when praise is not about genuine appreciation but about controlling your actions. Compliments, when overused or strategically placed, can become a tool to inflate your ego and lower your defenses, making you more compliant and eager to please. The way this manipulation works is quite simple. It makes you feel good about yourself. Who doesn't love hearing, "You're the most amazing man I've ever met," or "You're perfect, no one compares to you"? While these statements might sound heartwarming and sincere, they can sometimes be designed to cloud your judgment and soften you up for other, less favorable behaviors or demands. It plays into your desire for approval, making you more likely to do things that align with her interests, even if they don't serve your own. When a woman repeatedly tells you how incredible you are, it can feed your ego to the point where you start acting out of a desire to maintain that image. Maybe she says, "I can't believe I found someone like you," or "You're the only man who really understands me," and suddenly you feel obligated to live up to this idealized version of yourself. You may start doing things you normally wouldn't, from spending beyond your means to compromising your values, all in the effort to preserve that sense of admiration she's instilled in you. This tactic becomes especially dangerous when it leads you to overlook potential red flags. You may excuse or ignore her controlling behavior simply because she's made you feel so good about yourself. The constant praise becomes addictive, and you may start chasing it, doing whatever you can to keep the compliments coming. At this point, you're no longer acting from a place of self-awareness, but from a need for validation that she controls. The Stoics, known for their deep understanding of human behavior and emotional resilience, would strongly advise against falling into this trap. Stoicism teaches us that true contentment comes from within, not from the praise or validation of others. If you're constantly seeking approval from someone else, you're giving them power over your self-worth and, by extension, control over your actions. This is a form of emotional dependency, something the Stoics warned against because it erodes your autonomy. To counter this manipulation, it's essential to become aware of when compliments are being used to control you rather than build you up. Genuine appreciation feels different from manipulative flattery. Genuine compliments are usually more specific, focused on real qualities, and don't carry an expectation. Manipulative flattery, on the other hand, often feels exaggerated or comes right before or after a request. Ask yourself whether these compliments are making you feel good for the right reasons, or is they're making you more likely to comply with her wishes. Are you acting to maintain her admiration, or because it's what you truly want? It's important to stay grounded in your self-worth, independent of external validation, so that your decisions are based on what's best for you and not just on keeping her happy. A healthy relationship involves genuine admiration and appreciation, but it doesn't rely on constant flattery to manipulate behavior. By staying confident in who you are and not allowing excessive praise to cloud your judgment, you can avoid falling into the trap of seeking validation through compliance. The power lies in being aware of the difference between genuine praise and manipulative flattery, and refusing to let the latter dictate your actions. Chapter 4. Making you prove your love. A particularly insidious manipulation tactic some women use is making you constantly prove your love. This often takes the form of demands or ultimatums that challenge your loyalty and devotion to the relationship. She might say things like, "If you truly loved me, you would do this for me," or "Show me that I'm more important than your friends, family, or career by doing what I ask." These statements are crafted to guilt you into prioritizing her desires over your own needs, pushing you to constantly prove your affection. What makes this manipulation so powerful is that it preys on one of the strongest emotions in any relationship: love. Men, in particular, can feel a strong drive to prove their love and commitment when they care deeply for someone. This desire to demonstrate devotion can make you vulnerable to repeated demands, especially when they are framed as proof of how much you care. However, the danger in constantly proving your love is that it can turn into an endless cycle of sacrifice. You might find yourself consistently putting aside your own needs, interests, and even your values in an attempt to show how much she means to you. This can create a deeply unbalanced dynamic in the relationship. Over time, one partner, usually the one making the demands, ends up in a position of power, while the other is left constantly giving, compromising, and sacrificing. In such a dynamic, love stops being a mutual bond of respect and support, and instead becomes a one-sided obligation where you're constantly walking on eggshells, worried about meeting her expectations. The Stoics, with their philosophy centered on balance, reason, and self-control, would have been quick to see the danger in this kind of manipulation. They believed that love, like any other part of life, should be guided by rational thought and integrity, not by blind emotional reactions or the need to satisfy unreasonable demands. According to Stoic thought, love should never require a person to betray their values or continually sacrifice their well-being. True love is rooted in mutual respect, trust, and a deep understanding of each other's boundaries and needs. When you're caught in a situation where you're constantly asked to prove your love, it's essential to step back and recognize what's happening. It's not about proving your love, it's about control. Manipulative demands for proof of love often come from a place of insecurity or a desire to dominate the relationship. It's crucial to see this for what it is, a manipulation tactic designed to keep you off balance and in a state of emotional vulnerability. To counter this form of manipulation, establishing clear boundaries is critical. Make it clear that love should never be conditional or require constant proof through sacrifice. A healthy relationship doesn't involve endless emotional tests, but rather an ongoing commitment to mutual support and understanding. Communicate that your love and commitment are reflected in your everyday actions and behaviors, not in meeting unreasonable demands or proving yourself at every turn. It's also important to remember that relationships built on trust don't need tests or constant validation. If someone truly loves you, they won't feel the need to make you prove it repeatedly. True love is evident in the way you treat each other daily, in the respect you show for each other's boundaries, and in the way you support each other without needing constant reassurance. By refusing to engage in these emotional games, you send a powerful message that your love is real, but it is not something that should be manipulated or tested. You deserve a relationship where your love is appreciated for what it is, without the pressure to constantly prove yourself. If someone can't accept that, it's worth questioning whether they truly value you, or whether they're more interested in controlling you through their insecurities. Ultimately, love should be a source of strength, not a tool for manipulation. By setting clear boundaries and standing firm in your principles, you protect both your sense of self and the integrity of your relationship. Chapter 5: Dramatic Statements to Elicit a Reaction. A powerful and emotionally charged manipulation tactic that some women use involves making dramatic statements designed to provoke an intense reaction. These declarations are often exaggerated or filled with emotion, with the goal of making you respond impulsively, without thinking things through. For example, she might say something like, "If you leave, I don't know what I'll do," or "You never really loved me, did you?" These statements are crafted to trigger fear, guilt, or confusion in you, causing you to second-guess your actions or decisions and bend to her will. The effectiveness of dramatic statements lies in their ability to appeal directly to your emotions. They create a sense of urgency or crisis, making you feel as if the situation is much more dire than it truly is. The implicit message is that your response can either make or break the relationship or even her emotional well-being. This can be incredibly disorienting, leading you to react in ways that prioritize her emotional state over your own needs or the facts of the situation. Women who use this tactic often tap into your protective instincts, particularly if you're someone who deeply values the relationship. These emotional triggers work because they sidestep your logic and appeal directly to your sense of compassion or responsibility. You might feel compelled to make things right, even if the issue isn't truly as dramatic as it's being portrayed. In such moments, you may rush to reassure her, change your decision, or bend over backward to avoid conflict, without considering whether her statements are fair or rational. For example, a woman might say, "I knew you'd leave me eventually, even if all you did was express a minor concern or asked for space." This type of language is loaded with emotional weight, designed to provoke guilt and fear of abandonment. The intended effect is to make you doubt yourself and feel responsible for her emotional state, nudging you into actions that prioritize soothing her over pursuing your own well-being. From a Stoic perspective, reacting to such emotional manipulation undermines your ability to remain grounded in logic and reason. Stoicism teaches that we should not be governed by external events or extreme emotions, but instead approach situations with calmness and clarity. Dramatic statements are designed to elicit a heightened emotional reaction, and responding in kind only perpetuates the cycle of manipulation. The Stoic approach would be to recognize the exaggeration for what it is and remain emotionally centered, choosing to respond thoughtfully rather than react impulsively. When faced with a dramatic statement, the first step is to pause and assess the situation calmly. Is what she's saying truly reflective of the reality of your relationship, or is it an exaggerated emotional plea designed to get a reaction from you? By taking a step back, you can evaluate whether her statement is based on facts or if it's an attempt to manipulate your feelings. For example, if she says, "You don't care about me anymore," after you've made a small decision she doesn't like, you should recognize that this is likely an attempt to manipulate your guilt rather than a genuine reflection of your actions. Another effective way to deal with dramatic statements is to maintain composure. Instead of being swept away by the emotional intensity of her words, remain calm and address the situation rationally. Acknowledge her feelings without allowing them to dictate your response. For instance, you might say, "I understand that you're upset, but I think we need to talk about this calmly." By refusing to engage in an emotional spiral, you take away the power of the dramatic statement and can shift the conversation toward healthier communication. In addition to staying composed, it's also essential to set boundaries. Make it clear that while you respect her emotions, you won't be manipulated by exaggerated statements or emotional outbursts. Let her know that you're open to discussing problems in a rational and respectful way, but that you won't make decisions based on emotional manipulation. This approach not only protects your emotional well-being, but also encourages a more balanced and honest form of communication. The Stoic ideal of emotional self-control is especially helpful in these situations. Stoicism teaches that our emotions are within our control, even when external events, such as someone else's dramatic behavior, are not. When you master your own emotional responses, you become less susceptible to manipulation. Instead of being led by guilt or fear, you can respond in a way that is true to your values and aligned with your own sense of integrity. In sum, dramatic statements are a powerful manipulation tool that women can use to provoke emotional responses and control a situation. Recognizing this tactic for what it is allows you to avoid being swept up in the emotion of the moment and instead respond with logic and composure. By remaining grounded and setting clear boundaries, you can diffuse the power of dramatic manipulation and foster a healthier, more balanced relationship dynamic. Chapter 6. Just joking, using humor to deflect accountability. One of the more subtle manipulation tactics women may use involves making hurtful or critical comments and then brushing them off as just joking when called out. This method can leave you feeling confused, unsure whether you're overreacting or if her remarks were genuinely meant to be hurtful. It's a clever way to dodge accountability while planting seeds of doubt or discomfort in your mind. This tactic can erode your confidence over time, making you second-guess your feelings and reactions. The just joking strategy often shows up in small, seemingly harmless comments, such as, "Oh, you're going to wear that? I'm just joking, relax," or "No wonder you never get promoted, just kidding." These remarks are framed as jokes, but they often contain a kernel of criticism or disapproval. The issue is that when you try to address the hurtful nature of the comment, the woman can deflect by claiming you're overreacting or being too sensitive. By doing this, she avoids taking responsibility for the impact of her words and makes you feel as though you're in the wrong for feeling upset. This tactic works because it's disarming. Humor can be a bonding tool, but when it's used to criticize or belittle, it becomes a form of passive-aggressive manipulation. You may start questioning whether you're too sensitive or reading too much into her words, leading you to doubt your own feelings. The Stoics, who believed in the importance of rational thought and emotional control, would advise recognizing when humor is being used as a tool for manipulation. They taught that we should not allow external factors, including other people's words, to disturb our inner peace. To counter this manipulation, it's crucial to call out the behavior when it happens. If a joke feels hurtful or crosses a line, don't let it slide just because it's framed as humor. Let her know how the comment made you feel, and don't be afraid to assert that jokes shouldn't come at the expense of your feelings. This sets a boundary and makes it clear that you won't tolerate passive-aggressive behavior, even if it's disguised as humor. Another important point is to trust your own emotional responses. If a comment makes you uncomfortable, it's valid to feel that way, regardless of how the other person tries to spin it. Humor should build connection, not cause harm, and by recognizing manipulative jokes, you protect yourself from subtle emotional control. The Stoics remind us that we are the only ones responsible for our reactions, and by refusing to be manipulated by jokes, we maintain our emotional autonomy and strength. Chapter 7. The use of tears, leveraging emotions to control. One of the oldest and most recognizable manipulation tactics is the use of tears to sway a man's emotions and control the situation. While crying is a natural and genuine expression of emotion, it can also be used strategically to evoke sympathy or guilt, especially when a woman wants to shift the dynamics of a conversation or disagreement. Men often feel a strong emotional response when they see a woman cry, which can make them more likely to give in or apologize, even if they've done nothing wrong. Tears can be used to stop an argument in its tracks, change the direction of a conversation, or gain sympathy during a conflict. A woman might start crying when confronted with something uncomfortable, such as being held accountable for her actions. The tears then serve as a distraction, causing you to feel bad for her and shift the focus away from the original issue. This tactic is effective because it plays on your protective instincts and your desire to make her feel better. you might find yourself immediately backing down, apologizing, or trying to console her, even if you were in the right. The Stoics believed in the importance of controlling our emotions, both in how we express them and how we respond to others. They would caution against allowing someone else's emotional displays to control your actions. While it's natural to feel sympathy for someone in distress, it's important to recognize when tears are being used as a form of manipulation. Just because someone is crying doesn't mean you're at fault or that you should abandon your position in the argument. To counter this manipulation, it's essential to maintain your emotional composure. When confronted with tears, take a moment to assess the situation calmly. Ask yourself whether her crying is a genuine emotional reaction or if it's a tactic to manipulate the outcome of the conversation. If you suspect it's the latter, don't allow yourself to be swayed purely by the emotional display. Instead, stay focused on the issue at hand and address it directly, while still showing empathy for her feelings. It's also important to acknowledge the emotional display without letting it derail the conversation. You can express concern or sympathy for her emotions while also making it clear that the original issue needs to be resolved. For example, you might say, "I can see that this is upsetting you, but I think it's important we continue discussing what happened." This way, you validate her feelings without allowing the tears to manipulate your actions or sidestep accountability. Setting clear emotional boundaries is crucial in relationships. While it's normal to care about your partner's feelings, it's also essential to recognize when emotions are being used as a tool for control. The Stoics taught that we cannot control how others behave, but we can control how we respond to them. By remaining calm and rational in the face of tears, you maintain control of the situation and prevent yourself from being manipulated by emotional displays. In conclusion, the use of tears can be a powerful manipulation tool, but by recognizing it and staying grounded in your own emotional strength, you can navigate these situations without losing your composure or giving up your position. Emotional manipulation through crying only works when you allow it to control your reactions, and by staying mindful, you can avoid falling into that trap. And there you have it, 7 powerful ways that women may use to subtly manipulate and control men. It's important to understand that not every woman will use these tactics, and not every instance of these behaviors is intentionally manipulative. However, being aware of these techniques can help you better navigate your relationships and maintain your emotional balance. The key takeaway here, as the Stoics would teach, is to stay mindful and grounded. Don't let your emotions or someone else's emotional tactics drive your actions. Instead, respond with reason and maintain control over how you react to any situation. This not only helps you avoid being manipulated, but also strengthens your personal boundaries and sense of self-respect. Remember, manipulation thrives in situations where there is a lack of clarity or confidence. By recognizing these tactics, you're putting yourself in a stronger position to handle them with poise and integrity. Whether it's emotional blackmail, guilt trips, or passive-aggressive jokes, staying aware and setting firm boundaries will help you navigate any potential challenges in your relationships. If you found this episode helpful, don't forget to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and hit the notification bell so you don't miss any future episodes. Share your story in the comments if you've experienced any of these tactics and how you handled it. I'd love to hear your thoughts. Until next time, stay strong, stay grounded, and remember, you control your own actions and reactions, not anyone else's.